Well, in 2005, to be exactly on the 23rd of November 2005, former President, the late Mwai Kibaki, announced to the country of his entire cabinet. The two that were left unscathed were the Vice President and the Attorney General. 19 years later, today, President William Ruto stood in front of the State House and announced the dissolution of the cabinet. And two people were left. That is, the Vice President, obviously for constitutional reasons, and the Prime Cabinet Secretary. What are the ramifications of this, and what is the way forward? Julian is a governance expert. He's joining me on the set tonight to help us understand what is the way forward and exactly to help us put into perspective this whole scenario. Thank you very much indeed, Julian.
Thank you so much, Brian.
I mean, when you look at the similarities between 2005 and 2024, what conclusions do you draw?
First, allow me, if you would, to just say it's a new day. And I'm reminded of the song by Nina Simone. Mm-hmm. A new day, a new dawn, a new life, mm-hmm. And I'm feeling good because that's the feeling right now.
Very well.
And also just allow me to take a minute just to also celebrate our young people who have shown a very strong resolve in the way that they want to see the country governed. Mm-hmm. And we are beginning to see the fruits of that, and probably that we are changing the trajectory of this country. And that is really good news.
Very well.
To your question about the comparisons between what the late President Mwai Kibaki did 19 years ago and what President Ruto did today, there's some fundamental differences in terms of what has motivated those actions. If you look at President Kibaki's decision then, it was no differences within cabinet. And I remember there was a fundamental paper that was being passed that failed, being pushed by a division within cabinet. And it became untenable for cabinet to continue working in unison, mm-hmm. What you may want to call collective responsibility. So what I believe Kibaki was doing then was reorganizing his cabinet to bring the efficiencies that he needed, and most important, to have a cabinet that speaks in one voice. Mm-hmm. I want to believe that that is what drove that decision. 19 years later, President Ruto has done almost the same, but the motivations, in my view, are different. Whereas Kibaki's issue then was within his own cabinet, President Ruto is facing a serious crisis with his own people, his citizens. And this comes from an agitation for change along the issues of good governance. Mm-hmm. And this push has become so progressive to the extent that you can no longer wish it away. And there was no other solution for the president but to seek, the right counsel, listen to the voices, to understand what exactly the issues are, and respectfully submit to the wishes mm-hmm. of the people, the young people. So yes, you may say there were two officers that Kibaki retained then. I can understand from a constitutional perspective why he did that. On what President Ruto has done regarding Gachagua, I can say I understand it's a constitutional issue, but with the issues of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, I'm yet to understand what could be the decision behind retaining him in cabinet. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the two, their fundamentals are totally different.
Yeah. That's a question that has been going around. I mean, why drop all the other cabinet secretaries and leave the position of the Prime Cabinet Secretary? But obviously what is coming across is probably maybe because of the political that position, but yeah. I just want to leave that to you. And I want to quote what President Ruto said today. I will immediately engage in extensive consultations across different sectors and political formations. And I want you to underline political formations with the aim of setting up a broad-based government. When he talks about different political formations with the aim of setting up a broad-based government, we read government of national unity.
The first question we need to ask ourselves is, this is going to be a very interesting change of direction. If you look at what President Ruto did 2 years ago, He appeared to have skewed his decisions on the appointment of cabinet largely along the, the protocols of the political formations and the political equations at the time. But a time has come where we have proved that that is not working as he would have intended it to work.
Yeah.
We have seen serious issues, for lack of a better word, and excuse me for using this phrase, gross incompetence. So what choices is he left with? He's left with no choice but now to look out for people who he may want to call can assist him in delivering the manifestos that he gave this country 2 or so years ago. Now, when we're talking about broad-based government, in my view, I'm thinking inclusivity. I'm thinking a balance between his political interest and the interest of delivering on his promises, which can only be delivered by the goodwill of technocrats coming in to support him. We cannot wish away his political aspirations, both for now and for the future.
Because he's a politician.
Because he's a politician.
Yeah.
So the aspect of engaging politicians also in these decisions is going to be key. But I can almost bet on this. There will be more emphasis on professionalism.
And meritocracy.
And meritocracy, yeah. And I think, again, thanks to the young people, they have left us with no choice but to go to a place where now we appreciate good governance for what it really should be. Yeah.
I mean, this event or this dissolution of cabinet comes less than 5 days since a major meeting took place at Kenyatta International Convention Center, where the President William Ruto, in the presence of various political leaders, signed the KBC Reconstitution Act. And a lot of people have been guessing that we are likely to go into a government of national unity. And when you listen to the young people who have forced this situation to be like the way it is today, are you looking at a situation whereby we're likely to see more politicians, being appointed into the next cabinet? I want you to speculate.
It will be a misstep for the president to want to form a government of national unity on the basis of including politicians. If that will be the driver of the change that we are beginning to see, then the benefits that we envisage will not be realized, because we'll just be changing the players, but the script will largely remain the same. I see the president, you've just asked me to speculate. And the choice here is to really bring the kind of people who have the knowledge, the kind of people who have the skills, the kind of people who have the experience, competencies, and most important, because at some point I saw the president spoke about, the way his cabinet used to. The issue of the attributes in that office is also going to be key. Now, where can he source that kind of, profile? Something tells me that the best place to find that profile is in the professional realm. Yeah, so politicians will still play a role, but if you ask me to what extent, I will tell you to a very small extent, just to be able to maybe, massage some of the shocks that may come out of, the tough decision that he has made today. I don't see politicians making playing a big role in President Ruto's administration going forward.
Are we likely to see some of the cabinet secretaries who have been relieved of their duties making a comeback in the new cabinet? Yeah,
that will be unfortunate, and I say this with tremendous respect. They must take responsibility as a whole. I mean, this is a cabinet that should have been running through a core shared set of values. To the extent that it has been dissolved, it means that there was a serious sense of dysfunctionality within it. So if we were to dismiss them today and then have 4 come back tomorrow, again, it would raise some serious issues around our leadership and management policies or philosophy. But yes, 1 or 2 could still come back, because I believe there must be some personalities within the outgoing cabinet that have done a splendid job. But he will have a difficult job of justifying that decision, because everybody will be waiting to be told or to understand why this particular person has made a comeback. So the decision has to be really strong and powerful. Yeah.
In his speech, the president talked about he wants to make his government lean, inexpensive, and efficient. Yeah. I have heard things from the social media that the young people want to see a cabinet of not more than 15 cabinet secretaries.
Correct, yeah.
They want the salaries of cabinet secretaries and the executive to be reduced. Yeah. do you think the president is likely to listen to this demand by Gen Z?
Again, this is a script that is largely out of the president's control. And the mood of the country has totally changed. People have become a lot more aware. What I've come to learn with some of the demands coming from the Gen Zs, they are actually very well informed. And if you engage with these young people, you'll get to realize that they understand the issues of governance. They understand issues of efficiencies. They understand issues of effectiveness. So when they talk about 14 or 15 cabinet secretaries as opposed to what we heard earlier, it's clear that they have found areas of overlap that is making it, impossible for the cabinet to operate efficiently. And if you were to put an expert to see what, you may actually end up in a position where you probably just need 12 who are very efficient. Yeah, because then the question must be asked, what is the role of a cabinet secretary? What is this that occupies them on a full-time basis? And you'll find a lot of the work that they need to do is actually delegated. So and you have technocrats who then work below you. That being the case, you definitely don't need 20 people to be sitting in a room to make decisions. So what do I see happening going forward? I see the president taking cue from what the public is asking of him, probably engaging experts who can help him reorganize the cabinet the way the public expect it to look. And these changes, as they are being prayed by the young generation, I see them coming to fruition. I have full confidence that this demand will be met. Because the motivation comes from a good place.
In the reorganization that is now looming of the cabinet, are there some dockets that you expect or that you would want to see retained? And are there others that you would want to removed? And are there some dockets that you would want to be added in?
I'm going to be radical here. If you look at interior and you look at defense, you have to ask yourself, what is the big differentiator between the two? Why can't we have one person in charge of both dockets and then you have technocrats as PSs running, those broken down dockets? I am yet to appreciate what makes for a full-time defense minister or CS and what makes for a full-time interior CS. That's just a question that I have that sometimes goes on in my mind. Now, if you look at, let me look at another ministry that sometimes, if I look at water, for example, and I look at lands, for example, something to me again triggers. Sorry, to separate the two. Or can we look at them, we are looking at natural resources here, can we look at them as one? Then just be very clever in the way that we break it down, the tiers going down. Something tells me that that is doable. Education probably is one thing that you may want to make stand alone for obvious reasons, because we are talking about developing of human resource capital, and which is very critical for our development going forward. And it may need a specific and special level of focus. Long and short of what I'm saying is, there are ministries that can be merged and merged effectively. These are things that happen every day in the private sector. And I don't see why the public sector cannot borrow a leaf from what the private sector does. And this, believe you me, will bring a lot of accountability and a lot of efficiencies then, because we have president, and with fewer people, it's easier to manage and control government the way you want to control it.
The cabinet secretaries have been in office for less than 2 years. Have it been too quick to judge them or to judge their performance?
We've been too kind to the cabinet secretaries. That would be my response. Ordinarily, the first 90 days are sufficient for you to know whether the person appointed in a certain place of responsibility can deliver the goods. 90 days is enough. And the book has been written to that effect.
Those are 3 months.
So those are 3 months. And within 3 months, you know whether the appointed person is fit for purpose or not. So if you now take the period with which the cabinet has been in office, the dismissed cabinet has been in office, in my calculations, I can quickly say that we have had 18 months of lost time. 18 months of lost revenue. 18 months. And without the... I dread to imagine how much more waste we would have seen in another 3 years. So we are not too quick to judge. In the corporate world, you are judged within the first 90 days. You are given the first 3 months to learn the ropes, another 3 months to put your plans out, and another 3 months to see whether it's making any progress.
But the bureaucratic systems in public service are different from the ones in the private sector.
But that is what Gen Z are telling you, that they know it can work. So it's up to government to reorganize itself. It's up to government to change its philosophy of management and leadership. It is not up to us, the people. We have expectations. So it's up to government to the bureaucracy of government, and I've heard so much about that. The typical Mwananchi doesn't care about that.
It's high time we look at government bureaucracy.
We have no choice.
Very well.
Yeah.
Because we're almost coming to the end of this conversation,
Yeah.
I also want to hear from you. I mean, the roles of a cabinet secretary and that of a principal secretary are well defined,
Yeah.
even in the Constitution. Cabinet secretaries, they are at the policy level.
Yeah, policy level.
Principal secretaries are at the policy formulation
Yeah,
level.
exactly.
Now, the ministries have been left in the hands of principal secretaries. What can they do and what can't they do?
That's a difficult question to ask, because the Constitution has provisions on what is expected, of each side. But we're in a very unique situation right now, very, very unique. What do I see happening, if you ask me that question? What do I see happening? I see the president taking a phased approach in cleaning his government. You have a choice of either going the big bang where everybody goes home and you have a fresh start, or you have a choice of facing it. What I see the president doing, he has faced his approach of shedding off the administration that he has put in place. So the people that we are seeing will be left with very limited mandate. That's what I think. In terms of making those tough decisions that are made at cabinet level, I don't see them doing that. But in terms of the day-to-day running, ensuring that service delivery is happening, I don't see what stops them from doing that. But do we see them assuming the role of a CS in the short term?
The answer is,
no,
absolutely, no.
Absolutely no.
I mean, the Constitution, gives the president the powers, to fire cabinet secretaries.
Correct, yeah.
But of course, it does not expect a situation whereby the country would leave or stay without a cabinet in place.
Yeah.
How soon do you see the president appointing a new cabinet?
Probably that is going to be the most difficult call for him to make.
But he has to do it.
But he has to do it. But I would forgive the president to take as much time as he needs to shop for the best talent that he can find, to consult his widely.
Do you need a lot of time, honestly, I mean, to search for talent in Kenya?
You don't need a lot of time, but remember, this is now a mental shift. The political class has played this game in a certain way for a very long time. But the dynamics of it have now changed. So you can imagine the new to help run government. You can imagine the political ramifications of some of the decisions that he's going to make. They are weighty. So for this reason that they are weighty, he may need a bit of considerable time just to make those tough calls. But what do I see as the most feasible time frame for that to happen? I give it between 3 to 4 weeks.
3 to 4 weeks?
Yeah, 3 to 4 weeks.
Kibaki did these in about 2 weeks.
In about 2 weeks. It will be too ambitious to expect President Ruto to do this within 2 weeks. The challenges he's facing are totally, totally different from those which President Kibaki faced 19 years ago.
The president has talked about, a broad-based approach and, of course, reaching out to political formations. So I just want you to leave, politicians aside. I mean, he has made it clear that he's going to consult them. Who else do you expect to be consulted? Do you expect Gen Zs to be consulted?
Oh, certainly. I expect Gen Zs
Who are
to be
these Gen Zs?
Gen Zs are
how will they be consulted?
Gen Zs are a very interesting constituency, very, very interesting constituency. And they have demystified leadership as we know it. If I could just share a bit about how they operate. In the past, we have known organizations to be centralized, so that there's a central figure that manages everything that happens around organizations. What we're seeing with Gen Zs is they're bringing in a new concept of decentralized, very autonomous organizations. In form and shape, you can hardly touch or feel them, but they exist. So the appeal the president then has to make is, I need to consult with this space because I want to look at it as a space. And believe you me, within their own space, they can be able to guide, appear on X space to have conversation with them. That is exactly the forum that we can use to find or solicit for advice from the young people on who they think can take this country forward. So yes, Gen Zs will be a very, very important constituency for the president to consult.
Very well. Julian, what else do we need to know from you before I dismiss you?
What you need to know from me is, yes, we are living in very interesting times, Very, very interesting times. 2 years ago when I was here, I did mention in an interview that I had with one of your colleagues, I did mention that upon ascending to power, the president needed to move away from the political side of things to the management side of things. Now, it's taken us 2 years to realize that that was critical for him to do. I see good intentions in the part of the president, especially with the action that he took today. I see very good intentions from the part of Gen Zs in the way we go forward. The system or the president must find a way to operate and work in unison. I don't think we have any other choice.
I want to be forgiven if I end this conversation without asking you this. Yeah. Our country is facing tremendous shocks in our socio-economic sphere. Yeah. What kind of people do you expect the president to appoint in the economic sphere?
In the economic sphere. I think we can borrow heavily from the private sector. And from the private sector, because there's very good traction and there are very good records in terms of just determining who has done what and how well have they done it. And some of this information can be verified. I think the private sector will be a very good source for the president to tap the talent that he is looking for. Within the public sector, I've had the privilege of meeting quite a number of them, but because of the bureaucracies that good talent sometimes gets subdued. The president and his handlers will need to have a very, very intelligent way of sourcing this kind of talent within the public sector as well. But long and short of it, make it competitive. Open it to competition. Give everybody an equal opportunity. And Gen Zs will be there to validate and verify some of the decisions we make. So I think we're in a good place in this country at this point in time.
Julian, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much.
In case you get an opportunity to serve the nation as a cabinet secretary, do it and do it well.
Thank you so much for that.
Very good.
I appreciate that.
Julian Rowa is a governance expert joining us tonight to help us put into perspective the decisions that have been made by President William Ruto today. Dissolution of his almost his entire cabinet. You're watching the Prime Edition. We're in the company of Cynthia Nyamai. Cynthia, back to you.
Thank you, O'Brien. And as our guest said, indeed, we are definitely living in interesting times.